To dissect the cinematic entity known as Morbius is to perform an autopsy on a dream that died mid-formation. Released in 2022, directed by Daniel Espinosa, this film exists in a peculiar shadow realm of modern studio filmmaking. It is a work that earnestly attempts to graft the high tragedy of gothic horror onto the rigid, interconnected scaffolding of the contemporary superhero universe, in this specific case, Sony's Spider-Man universe. The result is not a synthesis, but a fascinating, spectral collision, a narrative artifact that reveals more about the process of its creation than the story it purports to tell. It is a film haunted not by the supernatural, but by the ghosts of better movies, better scripts, and a fundamental misunderstanding of its own core appeal. The tragedy begins, as it so often does, with a brilliant and suffering protagonist. Dr. Michael Morbius, portrayed by Jared Leto with a signature, brooding intensity, is a man defined by a fatal irony. He is a Nobel Prize-winning genius whose intellect is trapped within a decaying vessel. Afflicted since childhood by a rare, degenerative blood disease, his life has been a relentless race against his own biology. This affliction is shared by his surrogate brother, Lucian, whom Morbius calls Milo. Their bond is forged in the sterile, antiseptic environment of a specialized medical facility, overseen by their mentor and father figure, Dr. Emil Nicholas. This setup is pure, classical tragedy. Two brilliant minds, bound by shared suffering, desperate for a reprieve from the death sentence they were handed at birth. Morbius, a man of uncompromising ethics, decides that the only solution lies beyond the bounds of conventional morality. His life's work is the creation of artificial blood, a technology that has saved millions, yet fails to save himself. His true obsession, however, is the vampire bat, a creature that, in a stroke of narrative convenience, possesses a unique anticoagulant in its saliva. He theorizes that by splicing the DNA of these bats with human DNA, he can force his own body to regenerate. It is a Promethean gamble, a blatant act of scientific hubris that screams danger to everyone except the protagonist who is blinded by the proximity of his own demise. This ambition drives him to international waters, accompanied by his colleague and tentative love interest, Dr. Martine Bancroft. Aboard a container ship in the gray expanse of the ocean, safely beyond the reach of legal oversight, he conducts his forbidden experiment. The procedure is a baptism in techno-gothic visual language, a chamber of glass, a harness of surgical steel, and a cloud of agitated bats. The cure works, but it works too well. The first act of the newly transformed Morbius is a massacre. He does not simply heal, he evolves into a predator. When he emerges from the chaos, his frail body is gone, replaced by the sculpted physique of a classical anti-hero. He possesses superhuman strength, alarming speed, and a form of echolocation that the film visualizes as swirling, smoky tendrils of color. He has, in essence, traded one prison for another. He is cured of his disease, but now afflicted with an ancient, primordial thirst for human blood. Here, the film presents its central conflict, the duality of the man of science and the emergent beast. Morbius is a living vampire, a pseudo-vampire born of science, not superstition. He must now survive on a diet of his own artificial blue blood, constantly timing the rapidly decreasing intervals before the real hunger, the hunger for the red, overwhelms him. Leto plays this internal struggle with a pained, ascetic restraint. He is the monk flagellating himself, the addict desperate to manage his addiction. He becomes a fugitive, hunted by the very agency that once celebrated him, all while trying to control the monster he has unleashed upon himself. This internal conflict, however, is almost immediately externalized and, paradoxically, simplified by the antagonist. Milo, seeing Morbius's newfound vitality, desires the cure for himself. He represents the path Morbius refuses to take. Where Morbius is tortured by his new nature, Milo revels in it. He steals a vial of the serum, injects himself, and embraces the monstrosity without a shred of the moral compunction that defines Michael. This is where the film's narrative energy, and indeed its most memorable moments, truly lie. Matt Smith's performance as Milo is a chaotic, flamboyant rejection of the film's self-serious tone. He is not a complex villain. He is a force of pure, hedonistic id. He dances shirtless in front of a mirror, admiring his new form. He revels in the fear he inspires. He kills with a theatrical glee that is both terrifying and darkly comedic. He is the shadow self, the Dionysian impulse that Michael, the Apollonian scientist, must suppress. The conflict between these two surrogate brothers should be the beating, bloody heart of the film. It is the classic Cain and Abel archetype, remixed with echolocation and fangs. Yet, the film's execution falters. The aesthetic of Morbius is its greatest undoing. Espinosa attempts a visual language for vampiric powers that relies almost entirely on dense, overwhelming CGI. When Morbius or Milo move at super speed, they do not simply blur. They dissolve into colorful, particle-heavy smears that trail behind them like a digital artist's smudge tool. Their fights are not visceral, brutal confrontations, but chaotic ballets of computer-generated smoke. This smear effect, intended to convey inhuman speed, instead renders the action weightless and incoherent. It abstracts the horror, transforming what should be terrifying into a detached light show. The narrative structure itself feels similarly disjointed, a victim of what appears to be aggressive and frantic editing. Characters and plot threads are introduced only to vanish. Martine Bancroft, in particular, suffers from this, existing primarily as a damsel to be saved, then a potential victim, and finally, in a hurried third-act twist, a potential sequel seed. The emotional core, the brotherhood between Michael and Milo, the mentorship of Nicholas, is stated rather than felt, the dialogue often reduced to functional exposition or declarative statements of theme. The film is in such a breathless hurry to get to the next set piece that it forgets to build the emotional foundation required to make any of it matter. However, the analysis of Morbius as a 2022 cultural object cannot end with its credits. The film achieved a second, more potent life not in theaters, but on the internet. It became a phenomenon of mimetic failure. Its perceived shortcomings, the generic plot, the awkward dialogue, the overwrought seriousness, were transmuted by online discourse into high camp. The phrase, "It's Morbin time," a line that never appears in the film, became its unofficial slogan, a symbol of the collective, ironic enjoyment audiences derived from the idea of the movie. This digital afterlife was so potent, so seemingly widespread, that it infamously tricked the studio, Sony, into believing there was a genuine grassroots demand for the film. They re-released Morbius into theaters, where it failed, spectacularly, for a second time. This phenomenon is perhaps the most unique aspect of the film. Morbius is not a "so bad it's good" cult classic like The Room or Troll 2. Those films possess a bizarre, earnest, autorial madness. Morbius, by contrast, feels like a product made by committee, sanded down and re-edited until all its sharp, interesting edges were removed. Its failure is not passionate, but corporate. It became a meme precisely because it was so aggressively average, so emblematic of a certain kind of content-first universe building that prioritizes connective tissue over a strong, standalone story. In the end, the crypt of Morbius is a hollow one. It is a film about a brilliant man who becomes a monster, yet it lacks any real sense of horror or tragedy. It is a story of a desperate hunt for a cure, yet its own narrative composition feels terminally ill. It gestures toward complex themes, the ethics of science, the nature of monstrosity, the burden of power, but engages with them only at the most superficial level. What remains is a digital ghost, a colorful smear of what might have been, less a film and more a cultural footnote that perfectly encapsulates the strange, cynical, and often baffling landscape of 21st-century blockbuster filmmaking. It is a monument to a living vampire that, ironically, never truly had a pulse.